Welcome to RVing in New England, the nation's only forum that puts you on stage with some of the biggest names in the RV industry. And now your hosts, John DePietro and Bob Zagami.
Well, I keep telling them it's got to be Bob Zagami, not John DePietro.
They're not listening. They're not listening because they know that this industry, youth, experience, intelligence, and good looks weigh out every time. So you got no shot.
So I'm in second place.
Zagami,
I come out the gate in second place.
Zagami, you're not a second. You're not even in the same. You don't even show up in the same ballot as me.
Well, welcome to RVing in New England, and my co-host John DePietro. So it is Wednesday night. What do we got going tonight, John?
Bob, you know what? We got the power tonight. We've got the power to be what we want to be. And power is so important because we've got this gentleman has a absolutely fascinating backstory, which we'll get into. But today's RVers, as we found out when we spoke with several industry executives recently and looked at all the statistics as to who's buying RVs, people are not necessarily buying RVs today the same way that they did 10 or 15 years ago. So they are looking to boondock. They're looking to get out into the wild blue yonder. They're looking to work from their unit because, you know what, as we all have learned in the last year and a half, COVID has had an impact on the RV industry, a positive impact like never before in the history of the industry. So the key to the whole thing, and you see the way I'm building it up, you see the professional way that I'm building up our appearance by our guest, is that people need power to do the things that I just mentioned. And without further ado, or do we have any further ado before that?
Well, no, the only thing I would add to that is all those first-time buyers, a lot of them are millennials and Gen Zs, and they don't want to sit around the campground with all those old folks. They want to go out on the grid, off the grid. They want to go out boondocking, and they need systems to do that. And the technology is there. And Jack Johnson, the co-founder and CTO.
I just said that. You didn't add anything to the conversation. That's exactly what I said. See, you weren't listening.
No, I just said it a much better way. So
you better bring the guest. You better bring the guest on because this is not going to be a nice show.
Good. All right. As I was saying, our guest tonight is Jack Johnson, co-founder and CTO of Volta Power Systems, and we'll get into all the systems and the theories behind it. So, Jack, welcome to RVing. And see now you see what I have to put up with every week for 4.5 years.
Hey, hold on here. Hold on, Zagami. You sent out a PR release to all the major RV outlets today.
Right.
That guy didn't have a beard.
Well, he's got fast.
What are you eating there, Jack?
Growing hair. I don't know.
At 4:00 when I read the release out of RV Business or RV Pro or one of those publications, you look like a clean-cut little Dutch boy from Holland, Michigan. Dutch boy, isn't that a paint?
It is a paint, and
we
have Dutch bakery, and we have Dutch bread. We have lots of Dutches just down the street.
Oh, you're too good. You're too good.
You're a little bit light on the mic, Jack. So I'm going to ask you just to speak a little bit louder. And
sure.
When we got tonight, we got Walter Swenson is on from Central Mass. We got Jim Convoy from New England RV Roof. Dante is on, and Dante just bought a new motorhome. So. And Jim Roy is on from Silver Moose Restorations. That's a good one. It'll be interesting. Jim restores old Airstreams. It'd be really cool to have a Volta Power System in a converted and renovated Airstream. Jim says Bob has the good looks. I don't know about John. We have our own members of the fan club.
Let's get something straight. I interviewed Jim Convoy this weekend.
Yes, you did.
It was not you.
It was a good
You're
interview.
up in Maine playing with Lisa.
Huh?
While I was down in Foxborough working, you were playing.
Yep.
And Convoy has the guts to say, you look good and I don't. And I'll tell you right now, next year.
Wait a minute. Jim understands who runs the New England RV Dealers Association.
Yeah. Jim understands. If you look at Jim, his glasses, he's got Coke bottle glasses and walks around with a red, white, and blue stick. That's how good Jim's eyesight is. If he says that you have better looks than me.
All right. So what else?
It's not fair.
We got Jerry from Cape Cod. We got Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Greg Bitto. Huh? He likes that. I think Greg's new. Ryan Hadley. Good evening, guys. Hey, Ryan, I think I sent you 3 more people. You know, I am getting so many calls from RVers that are stranded or having problems. It's crazy. But Jack, let me get past to Petro. Welcome to RVing in New England. And thank you for joining us tonight. I know we did this on short notice, but you got such a great product. Tell us about how you get into it and a little bit about the company.
All right. Well, Bob and John, thank you again for the invite. It's always fun to talk about the company. Volta Power Systems was started 7 years ago, and it came from the background that I came from advanced hybrid battery technology development for a company called Johnson Controls. We were developing the next generation lithium-ion batteries that's powering the current fleet of EVs about 10 years ago. A little over that now. It should be 2008, 2009. And after the development of all that battery technology, we wanted to look for opportunities to say, hey, where could this technology go besides just powering cars? Would there be other places that make a better business case? And as we were looking for different markets, we looked at the RV world and we saw the generators, we saw how people were using them. And we actually, your intro was great when we talked to a lot of young people. Their thoughts of RVing, it kept coming back that generators were loud, not enough runtime. They didn't like going to campgrounds. They wanted to get out of campgrounds. And we're like, hey, this makes sense to say, hey, can we put EV, hybrid electric vehicle battery technology into motorhomes to change the experience of camping? Can we make it a better experience and more utilization on those vehicles? And we put together this concept, proved it out, and then shortly after that, we decided to take it outside. The company I worked for previously didn't want to do it. They saw it to be too complicated to help the smaller businesses. They're used to doing, hundreds of thousands of cars for a piece of business. And we're like, well, I think we could do this. And we formed Volta around the idea of building energy systems that are very similar in build and construction as a car, a modern electric vehicle, but to power the house, to power your next adventure, and do it without the noise, without the smell, without the oil, and
noise,
without the need of plugging in.
Yep.
You know what amazes me, Jack? We talked a little bit about it beforehand. In a very short period of time, you formed a company, you perfected the technology, and you were able to get RV manufacturers to adopt it. That does not happen often in the RV industry. Sometimes it takes 10 or 20 years for a manufacturer to crack into the industry. And you didn't just crack into it. You picked up nameplates like Winnebago and Liberty Coach and Tiffin and others. Did you have a comment, Mr. DePietro?
Yeah, Jack. Do you notice the plagiarism that just went on? Because before we went on the air, I said that exact same thing because I prepare in advance for these interviews. Now, I said that exact same thing that you broke into the good old boys network in the RV world. And I even asked if you were related to any of the presidents of the major companies. And you told us you weren't, but we're doing a background check on you. We're doing a check and a.
I'm a Kansan. I grew up in Kansas.
Kansas. You're a Jayhawk. Is that Jayhawks?
Jayhawks is one of the names for them. I'm actually from. I went to school the Pittsburgh State Gorillas, so I'm a gorilla.
Gorilla. Is that still politically correct?
So far, it is.
Yep.
That's almost as bad as Santa Cruz banana slugs or whatever the hell they call them.
But you did a phenomenal job and Bob, put those names back up there again because those are premier names
You mean the
in the
names that I
industry.
did? You mean the names that I did the research on and prepared the graphics on before the show, DePietro?
Yeah, I will condescend. I will admit that you did that.
All right, so there they are.
So you see, folks, what we've got here, and I still can't figure out what the heck the product does. So Jack, before we go any further, explain what the hell it's good for. What does it do?
Jack,
Well-
before you do that, I want to show a little video, because I think, if I can find it here, yeah. I think this does not have any words with it, but I want to show it because it's a great concept video, and then you'll be able to take off from there.
Is there music at least?
Nope.
We can do some background music. We can make some sound effects.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So go ahead, take it from there, Jack.
Yeah, explain that totally useless graphic that he just put up.
So what you saw going together.
I have no idea what it is.
What
There's
the,
all sorts of new terms everybody's going to get to learn and have fun with over the next, decade, as everybody's adapting to this next world of electrification, right? Everybody's learning it. Supposedly all the cars by 2030 are going to be electric, right? You hear all this crazy stuff, and we're all like, really? Okay. But it's happening. And yes, there's some crazy new terms. Things mean differently. But in essence, John, what it does is it gives you a lot more freedom when you go use your RV. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You're quiet. You're not making noise. You can go anywhere. You're going to have the power you want to power things. Like we say power that compromise, because traditionally there's not enough energy or power on board like a 12-volt traditional unit. You can't run your air conditioning. You always needed to go plug in, right? If I want to have all my creature comforts, I got to go plug in, or I got to fire the generator up, and the generator alerts people to where you're at. They know you're there. You don't want to walk off and leave it because it's running, right? You have the concerns. This takes all that away. And that graphic showed a key piece of the system. When we always talk power systems, because a lot of people want to think battery does it all, and it's not just a battery. We like to say, hey, think about this. If you've always bought that, V8, or you have a V12, or you got some sort of cool car, that engine always drove the vehicle, right? And that's what they sold around us. Who had the better engine? Imagine trying to sell a car and there's no engines anymore. You got to teach everybody, oh yeah, this battery's as good as an engine. You're like, huh? A battery good as an engine? And we had to do that. So fundamentally, we're replacing engines with the same tech that's going in these EVs. And that gives you the ability to have the power you want off grid. It lets you charge very quickly. We're running at higher voltage than traditional systems. This allows you to power more things, charge quicker. And then that's what ultimately people are really excited about, especially our adventure vehicle buyers. You want to go up in the mountains for a week and just have your refrigeration and no noise, you can do that. You want to run air conditioning all night long, you can run air conditioning all night long on one charge. Get up in the morning, take it for a short drive, and you're charged back up again.
Let me validate that. Surprisingly, about 3 years ago, which was probably about the time you started doing business with Winnebago. And before I do that, I actually got a text today from Dwayne Cyrus. He said, please tell Jack I said hi. I love his product, using it now in the Travato. I don't think I'll be able to join tonight. He's got a birthday party for one of his kids, but he said it should be a great show. We've known Dwayne for years. He's been our Northeast rep, and of course, you know him.
He's the best. Dwayne's the best.
So 3 years ago, I did the first, I think one of the first tests on the Bolt. Class B. And it must have been about the same time, because you started doing business with Winnebago about that time, and they delivered it. I was living in Massachusetts, and I drove it out to Forest City for the Grand National Rally. And I took a week to go out there. I just took my time.
That's because he got lost. When he went to Florida, he said, wait a minute.
Florida into Iowa. Okay.
He didn't have the RV life, the RV travel wizard.
Yeah. I never plugged that. I never had to plug that in, because just what you said, it was 100 degrees the whole way out there. It was 100 degrees in Iowa. it'd be 100 degrees during the day. I'd run that air conditioner all night long with no problem, get up, driving, and the next night I had the air conditioner, the refrigerators, and everything else. And I had no clue. I mean, I knew it was a Volta system, but I drive, I start them up and drive them. I don't worry about the technical stuff. But the other thing that was kind of amazing when I was reviewing your stuff was one of your first customers was Liberty Coach, because I think, and maybe you can go into this a little bit, I think a lot of us think that these systems, these new systems, are kind of like entry level, that they're getting into Class Bs and small Class Cs, but that's because of the people who are buying them that want to go off grid. But you come out the gate and your first RV customer is Liberty Coach that makes $2.5 million bus conversions. And you look at that and you say, wow, this is full strength.
Yes, right on, Bob. I mean, strategically, that's what we wanted to do. You think if you got your Halo, we actually called that the Halo segment. So you think of Chevrolet has a Corvette, right? That's their Halo car. You think of a Ferrari. If we're going to get customers to understand and feel comfortable, especially winning over, like John said, how do you win over that family relationships, those tight connections in RV? We're going to go to the top, and the Liberty team, they're just wonderful people. He's got a commitment to making sure he's delivering the best, newest technologies customers, and saw what we're doing at John's Controls. He trusted us, let us put a system in, and he went standard across the board in 2016. And we've been standard equipment on every Liberty Coach since 2016.
That's amazing.
But let's look at something here, Bob. When I saw who we had on the air, I said, Walter is going to be salivating over this.
Oh, absolutely.
I said,
Walter's
Jerry,
our resident engineer, right?
Jerry is going to be salivating over this, and Ryan Hadley is going to be interested in it as well. And sure enough, all three of those people have posted questions. And Jerry wrote, he had a couple questions here about the price. Yeah, that's right. Cost for, what's that mean? I don't even know the question, but Jack, I'm sure you do.
I do. So he's asking, he wants to know if it's a 100 amp hour battery, what's the weight of that jar? So he's looking for what in our world we call energy density. So we talk in watt hours per kilogram or watt hours per liter. Our product is 400 watt hours per kg. Per liter, 400 watt hours per liter, and it's 200, just under 200. I think it's 245 watt hours per kg. So you'd have to convert. So here's the funny thing about the industry: for the last 100 years, everyone sold 12-volt batteries, and so there was no reason to say, "Hey, mine's a 36 volt, mine's a 48 volt, mine's a 6 volt." Right? We haven't been selling 6 volts as a standard since what, 30s. So everyone's left at 12. So the industry started talking in this thing called amp hours, meaning, hey, my battery's 100 amp hours. But what it really means is you got to think about 12 volts times the amp hours. That gives you your watt hours. Watt hours is the actual power thing, the power equation. Amp hours is just half of it, because the industry got there was no reason to talk about 12 volts in their sales pitch. They only use capacity as a way to differentiate, and they taught the customer to think in amp hours. And we break that cycle. We don't talk in amp hours because none of our technology is in 12 volts. All of our technology is at 51 nominal, 58 volts on the top end. And so for example, if I told you what's a 100 amp hour battery, and our version would be 58, that'd be 5,800 watt hours. If I did in 12 volts, that's only 1,200 watt hours. So we are almost 6 times more energy than a 12 volt battery. And you say, hey, I want to know the cost of a 100 amp hour battery. It wouldn't be apples to apples, right? Because we'd be saying, hey, I got 6 times more of something, and the price wouldn't make sense to you.
Yeah.
And so we're slowly educating folks that say, hey, let's talk in kilowatt hours, total watt hours. That's kind of what cars are being rated at us. If you look at a Tesla or a Chevy Volt, a Bolt, any of the new cars, they're going to tell you the battery pack in kilowatt hours, and that's your capacity of your energy system.
So we had a couple more questions. Ryan Hadley, who's a
Ryan.
RV tech. Are you replacing the drive? I think let me try to answer that. The answer is generator. The drivetrain is only for the motion of the vehicle. You're not doing anything with propulsion, right?
No,
only the house.
Only the house. We specifically stay away from propulsion so that it's low voltage. So we do 60 volts and down is considered low voltage. And that's a big advantage for the RV technicians, especially with him in mind. So if you're an RV tech house or you're a service technician, having 350 or 700 volt DC systems come into your shop, all of a sudden your training changes, your liabilities changes. You have to have high voltage and arc flash protection. It gets kind of scary because if you do something wrong at 700 volt DC, it's deadly. It's something you don't want to play with. And so our experience in learning about your markets, there's a lot of tinkerers out there that like to modify and adjust their systems. They like to tweak things. And of course, RVs aren't built in 100,000 units, and they don't crash test 2,000 of them before they sell them, right? They're built more like a house or a custom home. We wanted to make sure for safety reasons we could build the most powerful system we could build, but keep it low voltage and focus on those accessory loads. So think of it this way. We like to power things that are 40 horsepower and down. And that's what all of our systems run.
Let me follow up. Let's stay on Ryan for a minute because he's an independent mobile tech and a damn good one. He says, do you offer training or classes for technicians? Yes. So how does he get engaged?
Call our service technicians line here at Volta, and we actually will train. We actually have a couple of mobile techs that have been trained, and as if we find the right opportunity in the right location, we usually bring them here and we'll do training in Holland, and it's a couple-day course.
So
then he's got one other one. So how do your batteries charge, alternator or solar?
Both. At different vehicles, we'll set it up different ways. So as we build a kit, we call them a catalog selection, but it's very modular, and we'll say Winnebago, say, hey, okay, Winnebago, what's the experience you want your customer have? And tell us about your vehicle. So they'll say, well, I want this product and this product. I want this type of refrigerator, right? And they tell us all the things they want to power. And then we say, what's that experience? Do you want an all-night experience? Do you want a full weekend? What is that unique niche you want to provide your client? Then we say, okay, what chassis will it be on? And we'll then size, if it's appropriate, the right size alternator that will go in the vehicle. We'll size the storage, we'll size the inverters, and all the pieces they need to have a full kit to make that vehicle what we call kind of a mild hybrid, or at least an electrified RV home. And yes, we have 58 volt alternators. We have them, they range from, our smallest one is 7,000 watts. And our biggest system is 22,000 watts of power generation off of an engine. So you mention that, 22,000 watts. And then we use solar.
Let me switch to Jerry because he's trying to compare something. He says, I'm just trying to compare against the Battleborn Life PO4S, which are 12 volt rated at 100 AH. Don't know what that means either, but I'm sure you do.
Yeah, so 12 volt would be the rate, its nominal rating, and 100 amp hours, it's its capacity. Think of amp hours as a gallon. It's a volume of energy. In this case, let's think of electron juice. It can hold 100 amp hours is the term they use, but think of it as in a volume. So no different buying that little gas tank. You got a spare gas tank in the trunk of your car that holds 1 gallon of fuel. Kind of think of that as in your mind what an amp hour is. And then what you would do is you go 12 times 100. That's 1,200. And volts times amp hours turns into the units called watt hour. So you'd have 1,200 watt hours or 1.2 kilowatts. And that's very small. That we don't even make anything that small. The smallest system we make is 6,000 watt hours. So 6 times bigger, But the funny thing is it's about the same size. It's just a little bit bigger than one of those.
Okay. You know what? I think we could answer all these technical questions all night long, but the question that and I'm sure it goes well over the heads of Zagami and I, but the question I have is from a consumer, from an active RVer. Why would someone want to look for a new RV with this product in it? What is the advantage of having a Volta system versus the conventional systems that are there now? Is that a fair question, Jack?
Oh, it's great. I'm going to just go back from my customers and what they tell us. So one of the biggest sellers is customers travel with their pets, and they love the idea of stopping at the restaurant, able to go in, no problem. They can see their charge rate from the app. They know they're going to have 8 to 12 hours of runtime. They can leave the van there. No one knows it's running, right? The generator's not running in the parking lot. They can go enjoy themselves and come back, and everything's great. That's one of the biggest things we hear about. The other is off-grid camping, so street camping. If they're adventurers, they're parking in a parking lot at night, they can run the air conditioning, watch TV, enjoy the whole thing, and no one knows they're there because the generator isn't calling attention to them.
So I'm going to ask this question that I know others are asking the same thing. Where does the power come from? Is there still a battery in the unit, in the house unit?
So that graphic you saw was the battery going together. That graphic in the beginning was what you saw is the little cells, the little flat looking like a piece of paper or plates.
Yeah.
Those go together and make a group of 28 of those little cells, and they go into that aluminum block that you saw get inserted into that larger box.
Hey, Jack, let me play that again, and you can talk through it because that doesn't have any audio with it. So let's run it again.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing there is what's called a prismatic cell. That's the new type of technology being used in automotive, large format. There's 28 of them go into that silver thing as a module. And that module is, the reason it's a module is because it's a very modular piece to build on, is 3.3 kilowatt hours each. And they weigh about 30 pounds. They're not very big. And then we build on those into that, what we call a pack. That pack has all the controls, all the computers, contactors, fusing, all that stuff you usually see external on a battery system. Most of that's all built into that box.
And where is that item located in the RV?
We place them a little bit everywhere. On the Winnebagos, they're outside underneath where the spare tire would be, where the generator would usually be. In the Liberty.
So there's no generator in those. It's one or the other.
It's no generator at all. We completely eliminate the generator on the Bs. So what we do is we kind of hybridize it. We pull energy from the main chassis by putting our alternators on the engine as a secondary alternator. So think about generators on those are usually 3 kilowatts, maybe what 2,000 watts. Not very big.
Jerry would know. He asked this one. He's with Major's RV Service Center, probably one of the premier, and somebody that you're also going to want to set up as a service facility. They just do service. They don't sell RVs or whatever. They're down in Cape Cod. He understands all this stuff. So he says, is there a built-in transformer to get down whatever he means there?
We call them DC power supplies. So there's integrated DCs. Depending on the vehicle, we have systems that'll be 40 amps of 12 volts to 300 amps of 12 volt. And we will what's called converting it. So you've got a higher voltage. So think of it as higher pressure. So if you got something, you guys got air tools, right? You guys use an air compressor at your house?
Who?
You guys
Me?
got air compressors? Yeah.
John? Me?
John?
No,
John, either one of you got an air compressor?
Jack, we drive these things. We don't fix them. Believe me.
Well, you have different voltages.
When we have problems, we call Jerry and Ryan and Walter.
I just drive to the Cape.
You just go for it. Well,
I just drive to the Cape.
I'll try not to go too techie, but yeah, you have to adjust the voltage to work with the appliance. And so he's asking, hey, if you're running at 60 volts, how do I run my appliance that are 12 volts? And what we do is we have high efficiency converters that will drop it down to 12 volts. And we do that because that makes it a constant power supply instead of worrying about, you ever been in a vehicle where the lights dim, things stop working but kind of work because the batteries are getting low? That type of condition doesn't happen anymore. We always provide a constant power out, just like your power tools, your new lithium power tools, right? They just run the same until they just stop, right? They don't run down anymore.
Can I, before you do that, John, can I jump over to Walter? Because Walter brings us down to earth, because he's an engineer, but he speaks like the common man. And he says, much of the tech is too expensive for the weekender, and in some cases more complicated than they can manage. Before you jump in, I would say it's not more complicated, because I took that Winnebago Bolt for 2 weeks, and Walter, I have all I can do to get the key in the ignition, and in fact, the one thing that I loved about it was so intuitive, and believe me, I didn't have to ask any questions for 2 weeks. And if I could do that, it's readable. I didn't.
It's got to be easy.
It's got to be really easy, and it was very intuitive. I didn't even have to look at the manual. So I love it. Second part of your question, I'd say they've solved that problem. But as far as the weekender, but don't forget, weekenders buy Class Bs, and and in fact, some of these young millennials, and what if they only go on weekends? They may, now that some of them will go full time and just go off the grid forever and ever. But address Walter's, because he looks at it from an engineering standpoint.
And I look at Walter's question a little bit different, Bob. I'm looking at it, his thinking, hey, that weekender that likes to build on things or build his own system. And advanced energy storage technology is very complicated. It's more complicated than designing and building your own engine. If you think about, if you're ever a shade tree mechanic and you took an engine apart and you built your own engine, that's one thing. But think about designing your own engine and then going try to be competitive. That's why it's really complex for what would be your traditional, hey, I got some batteries, I'm going to wire it, I'm going to make some, the basics you can make work. With newer technology, they're so heavily computer driven. There's so many safeties that need to be controlled. I like to tell people they are far more complex than today's modern engines in a lot of ways. That's why our model is very specific about, we only focus on selling to OEMs so we can integrate it into their vehicle on an assembly line.
As opposed to trying to repurpose it later.
What was that?
As opposed to trying to retrofit.
Retrofit.
Retrofit it's very complex to do, and like Walter was saying, hey, there's traditionally I could do this stuff on the weekend, just like we used to be able to work on our cars as a shade tree mechanic. Anymore, you can't do it because the technology has evolved so far. And to have the experience Bob wants, where I push one button and I enjoy my experience, I'm having fun camping, I'm not worrying about being a mechanic, it just does it. That requires a lot of engineering, a lot of techie stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And that's why we only sell to the Winnebagos, the Thors, and
so Jack, when you look at a unit that has your product in it, does it break it out in the window sticker what the cost is, or is that just buried in the cost of the unit?
Almost all of our customers are bearing it into the model, so they make it a new model.
So what does it cost? What say? Just use a Travato for example. Are you in a Travato?
Yeah, that Dwayne's got it in his Travato right now.
Okay, I mean, I have no idea. Is it 2,000? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000?
The Travato's pricing, I don't know where they're at right now. I mean, it's tens of thousands in difference generally, but then you got to subtract what you would have had in the generators, and you got to look at all the other things.
Okay.
So let me look at it this way. Let's just do a market. Let's just talk market in general. So when you go out and buy in the over-the-counter sales, as a consumer, you go onto Amazon or something, you buy a lithium-ion something, you're going to buy it as a function of how much energy it has. And so they're around $1,000 per kilowatt hour, plus or minus $100 a kilowatt hour. Automotive is now producing product under $400 kilowatt hour. They're actually more in like the $300 kilowatt hour range. These systems range, in the 600 to 900, somewhere in there just for core technology. And then you've got to have your labor and all the other things put on it. But it's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood for energy nationally. And everybody's going to price a little different because none of our systems are ever the same per customer.
Yeah.
They're going to be, some customers have 40,000 watt hours in them. Some customers have 6,000 watt hours, right? So we have a lot of range, but they're generally, you're going to see you compare one to the other, they might be $20,000 difference, and some of them might be $50,000 difference, depending on what it is. But think of an EV, right? Think of a Tesla. You can get that Cadillac that's beautiful for $60,000, or you can go buy a Tesla that's very similar but all electric. It's going to cost you $110,000 because of the technology in the vehicle.
Although that Model Y now is coming out much less.
Yeah, those are and that's what's cool is as we're building volume and we stay aligned with automotive, prices keep getting better and better. We haven't, even with all the crazy stuff going on, prices has been getting better because of the demand and the growth in lithium ion globally.
How about Greg Biddow's question there? Can you read that one?
Yes,
Jack?
Inverters are part of the package. Yes, we go 51 volts nominal to, this is the fun stuff. Yes, we do 120 pure sine. We do 240. We do 208 three-phase. All three of those type of capabilities we can provide customers for a mobile application.
We got too many engineers on the show tonight.
Hey, we do. Look at all these engineers. They're going to take over.
That's all right, because they have to listen to us,
Yep.
every other week. I want to get, did I get?
Wait, highlight Jerry's comment there because it's about time I got some credit. Highlight Jerry's credit.
I'll skip that one.
Oh, yeah. I'll read it.
better
Thank
looking?
you,
Is that
John,
what
for
it is?
asking the question. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to pop up Laturco's on. That truly is an advanced technology for multiple industries. You're right, and he's focusing on three. I could have sworn I saw Mr. Kessler sneak in the back door.
Is. He's here.
He's here.
He said, I'm here from stormy Michigan. Are you getting storms up there, Jack?
No, we're here in Holland. It's a nice cool breeze. It's a little cloudy, but no storm.
You know how Kessler tries to dramatize things.
Well, and Kessler's back to his normal time too. Halfway through the show.
Halfway through the show.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim Conboy has a question.
Lisa says, what's the warranty on these? Do they need to be repaired or replaced?
So our standard warranty is 3-year, 36,000 miles, or a little over 1,000 cycles. So it's just like trying to do a drivetrain warranty. With Winnebago, we did an 8-year prorated on the battery pack for them. So all the ancillary devices are the standard warranty, but the battery pack was out to 8 years. And yes, they are repairable. So the beauty here is we've designed them to be able to be reconditioned. They are repairable. It's a very expensive asset. It's no different than you're buying an engine or you're buying a generator, or you need to have something repaired. Something goes wrong, it needs to be fixable versus throwing away. The time of throwing your batteries away as disposable items, that's coming to an end. There's a lot of value here. And even if you do take 10, our product's designed for a 10-year life, and that's in an EV cycle, meaning like you're driving it like a car every day. So its expectation of life is much longer than 10 years, of course. But even then, those are going to be worth something because they are so valuable in terms of precious metals that are inside them.
All right, Jim is, he's a little technical. He says, so as I understand, this requires a motor with an alternator. What about trailers? Is it just solar, or when there is the ability to plug in?
We can do both. So it does not require a motor, so we can do big systems. So we have customers that have electric buses, but the electric bus just powers the wheels. They don't have enough power to run the air conditioning or run any of the devices in the coach. So we put our systems on top of EVs to support all the auxiliary loads, or we can hybridize with a vehicle with an engine. We can create generation there, or we've put systems up to 3,000 watts of solar on trailers, or we actually have a new product called the Nitro Connection. We actually take a pull vehicle and we can connect to the towable, and we can provide over 9,000 watts to the trailer. So now your trailer can go down the road, be freezing cold inside, keep the fridge cold, battery will stay charged. When you get to your destination, it's comfortable and ready to go. You don't have to worry about any thermal cycling anymore in your coach if you want to.
So Jack, is this product, is this concept still in its infancy, or are people now coming to dealerships and asking for units that have a Volta system in it?
That's where we're really blessed. Is the as we were talking before the show, the RV industry is there. Everybody's has great relationships. Everyone knows everybody. They like to talk. They enjoy the community of RVing, and if people have really good experiences, they share their experiences with the social media and the movement. And the Winnebago team is just awesome people, as you know. They go out and enjoy it. Their customers enjoy it. They all talk about it, and that's creating huge demand in the market for us. And a lot of those other names you're seeing coming on is Winnebago's had such great success. They see the customers. They're hearing it from people coming into the stores, and that's driving people to adopt it quicker. And like you said earlier, the normal buyer that's been out there traditionally isn't there. There are not as many. All these new buyers want this level of technology, and especially off-grid, work from anywhere. It's changing the market, and we're in that right place at the right time with the right technology.
And it was interesting because Tiffin introduced their first Class B motorhome at the Hershey show last week, and it's got the Volta system. Big press release, and so they see what the others are doing. And Bob Tiffin's a very smart man, been out there for a long time, and so now you've got it into a Tiffin also. Let's see what
Turco says. A lot of good comments here.
Winnebago introduced the Volta system on their Travato Class B about a year ago. Travato adds about 20,000 to the cost. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, you're right, and that's what Drain's driving. Let's get some people that we don't normally get here. Ron Ash Jr. says, "Thanks, guys. We appreciate you sharing." Thanks for joining us, Ron.
He meant me.
He meant you?
Yeah.
You mean because we're nice guys and we share you with them?
Oh, Sagami, you're so out of it.
Lovely says, "How does the safety?"
Jennifer?
I don't know. She's a member of Jack's fan club. She said hello to him earlier. How does the safety of Volta's technology compare to other lithium batteries like Battlehorn and what does that say? Lithionics?
Lithionics. This is the hot topic of the industry. So there's, funny thing about the word lithium ion, we always want things to be simple, but the word lithium ion is kind of like a family of products. And there's a lot of different types of lithium ion. I think there's 7 now, maybe there's 8 coming on market commercially, different types of chemistries. We use a chemistry called NMC, some call it NCM. It is what all the major automotive brands are using. And then the other technology that's traditionally in these markets, the over-the-counter markets, the smaller markets, are technology called lithium iron phosphate. Both are good technologies. Lithium iron phosphate has a different type of solvent in them, and they have a better response in terms of a thermal runaway. Something really, really bad crash, something happens. They don't produce as much exothermic, meaning they don't produce as much heat. Since the NMC technology has twice, and actually it's close to going to be 4 times more energy in them. There's more energy in them per mass. So people like to say, well, you got more energy, then it's going to be more dangerous. And I'm like, gasoline's still 30 times, people. You run around with gasoline and propane, it's way more energy dense than these things, but it becomes a hot topic. So for us, when you look at safety, we use the automotive mindset of how do you do failure mode effects. That's a fancy word for a lot of complicated engineering. You saw ours are all in steel boxes. We do not put plastic anywhere in ours. You'll see that they're sealed up. We don't let oxygen in around the batteries. We have a very advanced BMS using all of the latest technology from automotive. And so our systems follow very, very rigid testing. We have finished several UL 1973 through TEI testing, which is a big RV tester. We've also been through Amana Labs UL 1500 ignition testing for marine and explosion testing. So we've gone through all those tests. The product, the biggest automotive companies in the world are using the same level technology. The same cell technology is Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, Laturco had another one there. He says, hasn't Ford implemented this concept in the long-haul truck sleepers?
I don't know about that one. Ford is coming out with the Lightning, and the new pickup truck Lightning, and they're using a very similar technology that we use. And it was called a nickel manganese cobalt against graphite cell, an NMC technology.
Okay, Walter says, impacts from COVID, supply chain challenges, and/or lithium supplies. So
for lithium supplies, everything's good. The biggest challenge in the marketplace is microcontrollers, microchips. That's affecting everybody. About a year ago, one of the largest microchip plants in the world burned down in China, just right in the middle of when the pandemic started. And it was a huge percentage of the global production of microchips. And take that with the challenges of shipping, that's the biggest challenge in our side of the
getting product
supply chain. Getting microcontrol, anything that has a microcontroller in it has been a challenge. But lithium supplies, nickel, all those big, I call them make the stock price move stories. A lot of those stories are out there for market trends, but there's enough current supply to last many, many, many years. And that has not been a disruption currently.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, I think you misread the $20,000. The $20,000 was the option charge from Winnebago on the upcharge for the Travato. So it's not just the Volta systems; it's everything around the encasing and the engineering. So I don't think that's a fair comparison to say that $20,000 would buy 20 batteries.
Yeah,
buy a lot of gasoline too. Go ahead, Jack.
That's right. On that part, it's the inverter, it's a DC converter, it's the solar controller. They put different, there's a whole bunch of other options they add into that vehicle that are not part of the lithium system. They have a lot of different pieces. It's not just the batteries.
Right. Okay. What else? Anything else here?
Good stuff. Talk about electric vehicles and their adaptation to the RV industry, because, my nephew just picked up a Tesla a few weeks ago, so I started looking at them just because somebody in the family already has one. And then I started to, and somebody said, you got to watch out. In fact, it might have been Walter Swenson that told me this, our resident engineer, because he was my neighbor this weekend at the Halos Wish event. Do electric vehicles lose their range during cold weather, like in the Northeast, as opposed to Florida or Texas?
They're going to have reduced range in the winter. They need to stay warm. So all lithium batteries, preferably you keep them above 0. Some will go down to -7. But if you get too cold, they have internal heaters, and you're going to have to consume the energy in your tank to keep them warm, keep them operational. So if they're setting in the parking lot and it's freezing cold outside, the batteries, it kind of think like your engine's idling. It's setting there, keeping itself warm, and you're going to consume the battery power, keeping it operational. And that's where your range reduction usually comes from.
I think, didn't Winnebago move them inside this year on a lot of their models?
On the Bolt, I believe it's inside, but it's still outside on the Travato.
Okay.
So along those same lines, on the pickup trucks, on that Ford, what's Ford's got has a name for it already. What is it called?
The Lightning.
Lightning. They're going to, one of the things that I learned while looking at the Tesla is that these companies, they sell their product by 0 to 60, the speed, the range, and the top speed. That's the way Tesla, those are the big three things in all of those. Now, the range in a pickup truck for somebody who's a carpenter, you know, who might have some pieces of wood and some saws and, you know, carpenter tools in it, is going to be different than a person who's trying to pull an RV. Is the proper research being done to say what the actual use is going to be if you're pulling a 5,000 pound trailer or something? You see what I'm saying? You're pulling stuff all the time now.
Here's without going super techie, let's just do it the light way. So when you have your regular truck, you know, you've got your, or you guys Ford guys, Chevrolet, what do you guys drive?
I don't know, whatever. I've got a Subaru, so
you got a Subaru. So let's go with a half-ton Chevrolet pickup.
Okay.
You might get 18 to 20 miles a gallon driving it around the city, throwing stuff in the bed. You always get about the same fuel economy. As soon as you put your trailer on it and you start pulling hard, what happens to your fuel economy? Half. So you're going to consume twice. And fundamentally, the same thing is happening between the battery and your engine. They got to do more work. The more work you do, the more you sweat, the more you got to eat, more fuel you got to eat, right? You're going to use up more energy. So you can take the range, the MPE range, and just say a rule of thumb. Think about when you go to the car lot and you look at that. Oh, this car gets 38 miles a gallon, and then you drive it and it gets like, I only ever get like 28, right? Because they test them and they set the rating at a very specific drive cycle. But you know from experiences based on how you drive a car, you can get a good sense of proportion. Hey, if it's telling me I'm going to get 300-mile range, and I look at my regular vehicle, but I know I only get 250 how I drive it, you can take that same fundamental concept and say, oh, well, if it says 300-mile range, I might only get 250 the way I would drive it. Oh, and if I put a trailer, I'm going to cut that in half again. So I'm only going to get roughly 100-mile range, because it's not the batteries that's doing the difference. It's the fact you have to do the same amount of work, regardless of it's an engine burning fuel or a battery consuming its stored energy. You still have to do the same amount of work.
Okay.
You can argue one's more efficient, and we can get into the details, but conceptually, to make it easy for the general person to think about, just use your logic that you would see when you look at what something's rated on your car lot. You drive it normally, and then if you put a load on it, what happens then?
Yeah. Okay. So my question is this: you now are driving on Interstate 95 in your electric pickup truck, and your power is low. You pull into a charge port. Now you've got an RV. You've got a travel trailer or a fifth wheel hooked up in the back. It's not like you pull up to the Tesla stop at the mall.
Can you give me a computer course?
How long is it going to be to charge your car, and how much traffic are you going to disrupt while you're charging it?
Well, that's the thing that's so funny about energy. So one of the things that you hear people talk about all the time is how fast does it charge? Well, it's not the battery that charges. Another thing, example, if you think about when you pull into a tractor trailer stop with a fifth wheel, and the semis have the two ports and they can fill both tanks.
Yep.
Why do they fill both tanks at the same time?
It's faster.
Speed it up.
They get back on the road.
And what's slowing down? Why does it take so much time? What's the controlling time when you fill up? Is it the truck's ability to receive the fuel, or is it the pump capacity?
Yeah,
to push it out.
It's the pump capacity of the station. So here's the funny thing: where's all the electrical energy going to come from to have high flow rate? So when we say flow rate in electricity, we talk amps.
Yep.
Well, your house service is maybe a 100 amp service.
Yep.
No, you're going to need like a 500 amp, maybe a 600 amp service if you want to charge fast. And
The rapid charge.
At a reasonable charge, right? We're talking, they say rapid, but remember, we can roll in or fill up our car and recharge it fast in what, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, the gas station. And they're trying to get the batteries to be able to accept energy at that rate. And that's great. But then you have to have the infrastructure. You have to have these huge power distribution solutions. You're going to have giant local transformers that can push that type of current available. And that's not being talked about. I'm curious where are those all going to be at, because right now we have a gas station on every corner. Every stop that is along the way, there's a gas station at every exit. Can you imagine trying to have to put these giant power systems at every exit to be able to get, because you never, especially if you're pulling a vehicle and you're consuming energy at a higher rate. This is where fuel delivery is just it still makes a lot of sense. A fuel engine has just so much more energy capacity than even the best battery technology right now. So I don't see them coming quickly as a replacement of what we see today. 2,500, your 3,500, your 1-ton trucks, your bigger vehicles. They'll just be stopped all the time trying to charge, and you're going to have a lot of frustrated people.
Well, we are just about, believe it or not, I told you it would go fast. I want to get 2 quick ones in here. Dante just bought a new coach. He's interested in doing it. You don't want to do it, Dante. You bought a gas coach, and although you might find somebody to retrofit, the business for Volta right now is through the OEMs, and you'd have to trade in that brand new coach on something with the Volta system. So I'd not recommend that, and I'm sure Jack wouldn't. Ryan says he's really interested in this and will reach out to your company to receive training and possibly become a service provider in the Northeast for you. And you would be well served to have Ryan on your team, and also the guys down at Majors RV. Walter says real quick here, are you storing your unfinished products at a racetrack parking lot?
Somebody is.
Yeah. Ford and I think Dodge is doing it while they wait for their chips, right? So
no, we don't have to do that. No, we're all in the warehouse here in Holland, Michigan.
He doesn't have to. It gets them into the OEMs. Jack, this has been fantastic. Even though I didn't follow half the conversation, but
I'm sorry.
The response from
Jack, it's like that every week. He only gets half of what we're doing.
But the response from our fans has been fantastic, and of course we archive this on our site, so we get a lot of people that watch afterwards. But any closing statements that you'd like to say to our fans?
Just keep asking questions. Be young at heart, ask a lot of questions. Don't feel dumb. These things are new. Yes, these are funny terms, but this world of electrification is going to be changing your world. You'll see it. It has great advantages. I encourage everybody not to be afraid of it and learn it. And you're gonna enjoy the opportunity to learn these new technologies that's going to provide new experiences for you.
Especially our engineering friends. John, any closing statements before we put the closing video on?
I think Jack did a great job, and we want to thank him, wish him well, and look forward to learning more about your power systems as we go down the road.
Well, I hope to run into both of you again soon.
All right, Jack, thank you very much.
This edition of RVing in New England was a presentation of the New England RV Dealers Association. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.